Each mainline game in the Like a Dragon series arguably has some sort of big overarching theme that it focuses on. Yakuza 5, for example, is all about dreams and the dedication that is required to reach them. Yakuza 6 is about family and the consequences of being an ignorant parent. Yakuza 0's theming is a lot more obvious to me. Of course, you can argue against this, but I believe it's pretty clear that Yakuza 0 is all about money. From its time setting to its story of several organizations all racing to acquire the empty lot in exchange for profit, the significance of real estate, everywhere you look in this game will lead back to money. I think it's really interesting because the rest of the Yakuza games tend to have less solid themes. They're normally about a moral or an emotion, just something less tangible. Yakuza 0 to me is the outlier of this pattern, so let's explore everything that relates to cash in this game. I did a little bit of research for this video to see what Japan was really like in the 1980s. As you already know, 0 is set during 1988. And a very different Kamurocho and Sotenbori is portrayed from what we're typically used to seeing. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but let's first go over what real-life Japan was like back then, because this context is very significant to why Yakuza 0 is the way it is. Between 1986 to 1992, Japan was facing a big economic boom. Construction and vehicle industries were flourishing, consumers were going on spending sprees for luxury goods, and property prices were rising. People living in rural areas were moving into the cities to experience this supposedly grandiose lifestyle. Increased wealth led to entertainment, nightlife, and fashion markets getting bigger. Nintendo and Sega were innovating in the newly formed video game industry. Arcades were propping up more and more. Karaoke became a staple of Japan. Cabaret clubs, discos, cinemas, music. Simply put, people were having a ton of fun, spending a ton of money, allowing companies to prosper. I mentioned that this period of luxury ended during 1992, and that's because this kind of thing doesn't last. I think the majority of Japanese knew this lifestyle wouldn't be forever, but everyone was kind of just living in the moment, ignorant of the fact that the bubble had to burst. That's why Yakuza 0 is the only one in the Like a Dragon series that is like this. From Yakuza 1 onwards, we see a very different Japan, more gentrified, clean, orderly, but we're not here to talk about that lame future. We're here to revel in the times, so let's discuss what 1988's Kamurocho was like, and everything that relates to money in it. Real estate is a real big aspect of Yakuza 0. The empty lot is a mini plot of land that everyone is trying to get their grubby hands on so they can sell it for the Kamurocho revitalization project to go ahead. Tachibana Real Estate is a major player in this race, and we can see just how powerful and rich the organization is from this goofy but badass cutscene that we all know and love. And let's not forget Kiryu's real estate company. If you aren't happy with the overabundance of cash exploding out of your enemies every fight, you can always buy and sell properties for insane amounts of yen here. But no matter what type of player you are, whether you're good or bad at this game, whether you do a ton of minigames or not, you will still have basically infinite wealth on you at all times. Infinite what? One street fight can be equivalent to how much money you make throughout the course of an entire other Yakuza game. It is absurd. Yakuza 0 is a great starting point for new players for a variety of reasons, but one of them is because of how easy this game is. Not that boss fights are a breeze, they can definitely give you some trouble. It's the fact that you can restock on healing items and never go a fight without being able to heal yourself back up to max 10 times over. In any other Yakuza game, I'll take a second to think, do I really need to buy this stamina X? But in 0, that's never something I have to consider. As previously mentioned, Japan in the 80s was going through this thing where entertainment was blowing the f*** up. And that's no different in Kamurocho. We've got the usual karaoke, bowling, darts, but we've also got the start of a growing industry, that of the cabaret clubs, which Majima gets to manage. We've also got discos, which I found out were actually pretty massive in Japan, same as the Western world. Speaking of discos, music and sound is very prominent in Yakuza 0. Like a Dragon games do tend to have a lot of ambience when free roaming, but 0 is just so loud at all times. Music blares from damn near every building, crowds are large, people are seen grouping up, having fun, chatting. This is not the same Kamurocho as maybe that of Yakuza 5 or 6, which is more tame and quiet. Another way that 0 differentiates itself from other games is through how there's clutter strewn around on every street. This wasn't something I noticed until going back and playing 0 after beating 6, but the difference is night and day. I can only assume this links back to that consumer spending that was going on. People are just buying so much and throwing out the trash right onto the street. I don't know if this reflects Japan during the time. I couldn't find anything on that during my research, but it is a very interesting detail from RGG nonetheless. The final thing I wanted to quickly touch upon is the enemies and combat. Yakuza 0, from what I know, is the only game in the franchise where you use money to level your skills. Every other game has orbs or something along those lines. I like that they chose to do it this way for 0. There's an overabundance of money, sure, but they found a way for it to still be useful and feel significant. Every item in this game feels worthless, but leveling up is still super duper expensive, so they managed to still balance it somewhat. Making enemies explode wads of cash when you defeat them is another nice detail, and it provides a satisfying visual confirmation that you are succeeding. It's also in my mind a factor as of why 0's combat is so satisfying. It's similar to games like Vampire Survivors, in which you're getting a visual indication that you're doing well through its display of big damage numbers popping up all around you. Seeing Kiryu whack absurd amounts of yen out of his enemies provides me with that same satisfaction. And finally, Mr. Shakedown. It only makes sense that there's an 8-foot giant wandering the streets of Kamurocho and Sotenbori in search of helpless victims to shake down. It's a simple feature that once again lends itself back to the overall theme of money. So that's that. RGG's dedication to theming is very admirable, and I think 0 does this best. Every little detail hammers down that theme of cash, dough, ka-ching. It's super well done. That's it for this video. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these style videos this year, where I analyze a single aspect of the Yakuza games, so if you are interested in that and enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. Also, leave a comment if you think I forgot to mention anything, or if any of my research was wrong, which I don't think it was, but I'd like to know either way. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you have to say about all this. See ya.